Welcome back. One of the risk assets that appears to have benefited the most from the U.S. election result on November the 5th is the Bitcoin price. It has been surging higher seemingly ever since then. There's a look at the 1 month view of Bitcoin. You can see November the 5th on that graph, just a little bit left of the center. And that is when the big rally in Bitcoin has taken place, from the 5th of November to now. We are now at, as you can see on your screen, 98,800 approximately U.S. dollars per coin. Let's talk about Bitcoin and the market for it with Katherine Dowling. She's General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer at Bitwise, and she joins us from San Francisco. Katherine, thanks a great deal. You and your colleagues at Bitwise believe that Bitcoin's moving higher from here. Explain your forecast.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me. We do believe it's going higher. Bitcoin was going higher running into the election because the thought process was that whether it was going to be Harris or Trump, it was going to be a friendlier environment, a new tone to be set within the SEC. And what we've seen now is that that has panned out as we thought it would. Whether it was going to be Trump or Harris, it was going to be a better world. And by that, I mean a better world, a better tone in terms of the approach that regulators would have towards digital assets, an approach that would involve more communication and more conversation to get a better regulatory path for these businesses. So with Bitcoin, we've seen it obviously kissing 100,000, getting close. And we do see that there's more ramp to run on Bitcoin pricing, giving the possibilities and a warmer embrace from regulators approaching businesses that use Bitcoin, businesses that use other digital assets. And that's going to be important for the performance and the prices and success of all of the digital assets in the ecosystem.
I'm interested in what you mean by a warmer regulatory embrace. And the reason I ask it, as you've been speaking, we've been showing the 1 year history of Bitcoin. And as you know, there was a significant rally in February or so, and that coincided directly with the approval by the Securities Exchange Commission of, I believe it was spot price Bitcoin ETFs, which had not existed in the U.S. until then. And that rally more or less held through to November the 5th. So the market got a boost from those SEC approvals and more or less held on to those gains. So what further regulatory relaxation are you looking forward to?
Yeah, thank you. And I would not seeing it as relaxation so much as an approach and a tone. The Gensler era has been a Game of Thrones era. It's been highly politicized. There has been invitation to come in and speak to the SEC, and then businesses found that when they did try to make an approach, that there was no there to the invite for the conversation. That puts it simply, the tone at the SEC needs to change. So by warm embrace, what I mean there is that the two sides will actually be talking so that you can have businesses have a clearer path for how they can decide what they approach and how they approach their businesses in the right way. Right now, it's been come in and talk, but we actually aren't going to have a conversation. And that's just not tenable. So what you've seen is this enforcement whack-a-mole approach from how Gensler has run this SEC. And what you've also seen is that a number of key SEC players have voted with their feet and have left the SEC. So the tone for the staff within the SEC has been a tough one as well to foster a dialogue with the industry.
What kind of regulatory changes would the industry like to see on top of the approval of ETFs?
What we'd like to see is an open dialogue. I've been to a number of congressional hearings where members of Congress have point blank asked Gensler questions that he either doesn't answer or chooses to answer in a way that's somewhat political. So what I'd like to see is the SEC actually working with Congress and working with the CFTC, along with other regulators, to approach these businesses and not just say, look, the laws are on the book, we're just going to go with the laws that are on the book. The reality is he can continue to say that, but the laws that are on the book just don't work in toto for this industry. So there needs to be more of a sit down, roll up your sleeves, and let's talk about just even simple definitions. And what we've seen over the last couple of years within Congress is a growing understanding that that is what is needed. And that's why we've seen a number of bills proposed and discussed within Congress, which is really positive motion. So what the hope is that come January, we will actually be able to to see some more momentum towards actually getting legislation on the books. So even the approvals for the spot Bitcoin ETF that really did move the market, understandably, because it creates a new regulated wrapper for people to come in and invest in Bitcoin that has been lacking for a number of years, but has been present in a number of other countries for years. Even though that was opened up by the SEC, there was still so much more out there that has not been sorted through or figured or discussed. And I think just figuring that out and being able to sit down and have an open dialogue rather than the hammer nail approach, everything's a security, we have to jam it in that box for the SEC to have jurisdiction, is going to be a welcome change. And it's not going to happen overnight, nor should it. It should be a considered approach, but just opening up those doors, opening up the dialogue so we can get to some of those simple definitions of which regulator should be regulating depending on the definition or where this digital asset falls on the spectrum. And those are just important items that have just not been fully figured out because there really hasn't been a willingness with this SEC to do that. They think that they had enough on the books and they went after businesses, but time and time again, a number of federal courts said, not so fast, SEC, you're stepping over your jurisdictional bounds. And I think that combination of the federal courts, members of Congress getting further and further up to speed on an understanding of these businesses has been enough pressure that that's what you've seen within the SEC. And that's why you've seen that Gensler has picked up this reputation and it's kind of out in the open now. And now we have the Gensler resignation. So I think the tone at the SEC will be able to be much better with a new leader running the SEC and allowing for some of those conversations that should have already been taking place to actually happen now.
We're almost out of time, but how far along are we, in your opinion, in the mainstreaming of cryptocurrencies? We've referenced the ETFs numerous times. That was a big step in making cryptocurrencies easily available to retail investors. We also hear that institutions have warmed up in a big way to holding cryptocurrencies as part of their asset bases. How far along the road of mainstreaming are we?
We are only this far along the road. There's so much more to be done. And I think understanding some of those block and tackle aspects kind of behind the scenes that need to be sorted and cleared to allow for some institutions to fully embrace the industry. For instance, we still have an approach where broker dealers aren't able to touch this asset. So you have to go through complicated scenarios to be able to run some of these links in the chain of businesses. Once there is a clearer path for broker dealers to be able to engage more readily with digital assets, once some of the custody aspects that have been left unsolved with this SEC, that is when you will see a truer unlock. So we're really just at the beginning here.